Moriarty the Patriot just wrapped up its 24 episode run last week, so now that it's complete, we'll take a look back and ask, should you watch this anime? Well, with Moriarty the Patriot, it's a bit complicated, but first let's see if it's even your sort of thing. This 2020 anime follows the adventures of the Moriarty brothers, Albert, Lewis, and mainly William, as they seek to change the late 19th century British Empire for the better. Coming from both aristocracy and peasantry, they know all too well the evils of those in charge of the world. With a position of power and unrivaled intelligence, they become the Lord of Crime, enforcing a new, equitable will over the Empire. It's kind of like Eat the Rich the anime. If this sounds familiar, that's probably because they have a little-known rival, one Sherlock Holmes. Based on the works by Arthur Conan Doyle, the anime follows the rivalry which ensues between the two, as each side climbs the ladder of fame to the same peak, where they eventually clash. If you've seen Psycho Pass, think of the rivalry between Kogami and Makishima, one where there isn't a clear right and wrong, even if we agree with the methods of one more than the other. It also has a similar idea of watching a fall from grace and diving into the depths of an enemy's world to stop them. Mixed into this are some notes you'll find similar from Code Geass, like an antagonistic main character with a sole desire for a new world, and thematic elements like the cost of change, responsibility for one's will, and the bearing of sin. Following both crime consultants and a detective, the anime has a case-by-case structure, where you can pick up a few episodes here and there and not feel the need to watch everything at once. If you know Jormungand, it has a similar episodic structure where an overarching plot exists, but most of the action takes place through standalone adventures. These comparisons have heavy caveats, however, as we get into the why-nots of Moriarty the Patriot. Although it has a rivalry most comparable to Psycho Pass, it suffers from a lack of similar depth. With a comparable number of episodes, it often splits time between Sherlock and the Moriartys, having stretches where neither appears and one side is left to be developed independently. This hurts the feel of their rivalry overall and leaves it much more forced than the comparison. The early cases don't build into the later ones, and instead it takes a detached approach with a few detours and seemingly needless stops. Plus, it lacks a character like Akane to convey a sense of middle ground between the opposing sides and scale for the world, so the viewer is left to try and feel out the connection on their own. So if you like the general structure of the Psycho Pass relationships but don't feel the need for as much philosophical trash talk, then you might enjoy what it has going for it. But if you're like me and want a feud that will leave you spinning for days, you'll want to look elsewhere. Code Geass is actually a fair comparison in terms of its downfalls as well. Moriarty suffers from a similarly bloated cast for what it is, leaving a lot of characters on the table who needed some depth and exploration they simply never got. Characters like Fred, Moran, and Jack the Ripper, who each serve a purpose that could easily be replaced by a tighter plot, which would have given the main cast more reason to feel important. Each has a specific duty and feel, which might be something you enjoy, but for me they were all one-dimensional even in their final attempts to pull some heartstrings. The anime introduces side characters as if they'll have a decent role and then mostly forgets about them, stuffing them in to meet the literal requirements of the plot. You also might get a similar feel in the everyone around the main character is stupid camp some have with Code Geass. While I spoke about it for that anime, I won't be doing so here. Because it's a case-by-case structure, many of these solo plots do hinge on some quite obvious and mediocre reveals, lacking depth as much as the side characters who populate them. The single to double episode villains are caricatures of easy plays, like hunting poor men for sport or refusing easy requests because peasants don't deserve their help. If you want some aristocrat killing porn, then this is a great and easy watch, I will say that. It has a satisfaction factor of watching the betrayal on an evil character's face as they fall to their own devilish ways, very eye for an eye. In that end, the cheap development works, but not for much more. This includes those Code Geass-esque themes. Are they technically present? Yes, but really they're more of a simple mention than fleshed out ideas. So if you like them as a framing, go ahead, but if you want more of the feeling of existentialism that comes from a deep work of art, look elsewhere. It's very much a happy anime despite the dark subject matter at times. It's campy in many ways, with the best example probably being the appearance of a character named Bond. James Bond. Yeah, that does happen. If you want something that takes itself seriously all the time, this certainly isn't it. If you've seen last year's Appare Ranman, think of a comparable level of goofiness. Similarly, don't expect the setting to be treated with complete respect. Much like Appare broke the setting with outlandish technology, Moriarty the Patriot does the same. Just like these side characters, technology is introduced as if it'll return, but it never does. If you want something for the Old English setting or a period piece that does justice to the times, I'd heartily steer clear. Your eyes might roll out of the back of your head with some moments. And a very important note you've probably already picked up on if it matters to you, just as it plays fast and loose with the history, it does so with the lore of Sherlock. I'm not familiar with Sherlock myself, so I can't speak personally to how, but everything I've heard from fans confirms it's more of a framing device than an accurate portrayal. What I have heard, however, is it does stay quite true to the character of Sherlock himself. He's very much a selfish asshole at times, more excited with the idea of a challenging case than in helping the one who requested it. They do a great job of representing this without ever stating it, having him light up at certain times, ignoring the death and horror lying just feet away from him. For how much the side characters were flat and the main rivals lack a meaningful depth, they are each quite developed in engaging ways, such as that. William shows kindness at odd times, revealing his priorities and ambitions, and in many of his actions that could be called experiments for himself and his goals. Although the pair's interactions lack overall thematic significance in many ways, there are a few moments between them that have a well-paced and engaging back and forth that can get your heart pumping faster. It has that ever so satisfying frenemies relationship where each knows and suspects the other but also genuinely enjoys their company as one of the only interesting people. Yes, it's a little bit like a very watered down Death Note. For my last comparison, I want to bring up Akame ga Kill, a 5 out of 10 anime that I love. I rate Moriarty the Patriot the same for the same reason. As a simple watch that keeps you entertained, it's pretty good. Not everything needs to have some relevance to your life that can keep you pondering, but I hate when a series brings in those elements only to drop them and pick them back up at the end as if they were never gone. I despise the end of Moriarty the Patriot because it tries to tie a separated cast and separated plot back together in a nice package that utilizes themes dropped half a season prior as if it was some master plan. I call these undeserved moments. It states that it has an intensely deep connection like that of a masterclass anime and a fully fleshed out and long-spanning plot which come together in an explosive conclusion. It has none of these things. It's like they gathered the things to start a fire and then instantly declared it was a roaring blaze. The groundwork was there. The plot could have cascaded back in on itself to make us go, aha! The characters could have hurt each other in ways that we felt as if they were personal attacks, but none of it panned out. And the ending also undoes a lot of the possible messaging by pulling a last-minute twist that does nothing but provide simple fan service. If you want something profound, look hard elsewhere, because Moriarty the Patriot is painful to watch with that in mind, as it starts on track before veering off into generic territory. A fun watch over time here and there that can scratch some specific itches you may have, but nothing more than that. Essentially, back in April, I was wrong. Moriarty the Patriot did not pan out to be the next Psycho-Pass. Anyway, I hope this video gave you a quick gauge of if this is your thing or not, and since it's a new format, let me know with a like or dislike, or tell me directly down below. Same thing if there's anything you want me to cover, whether for a discussion or another video like this. As usual, links in the pinned comment for Discord, Twitter, and most importantly Patreon, where you can get your name at the end of videos just like right now. Anyway, more on screen, subscribe in videos, and as always, thank you for watching, and I hope I'll see you again soon.